Well, yesterday they pretty much came out, that being various sources like PW Insider, Dave Meltzer, believe it or not, and even Fightful.com through Sean Ross Sapp, and anybody else that was in the know, or at least had some connections. But yesterday it was reported that WWE was going to be heading to Riyadh or Jeddah, Saudi Arabia in 2027 for Wrestlemania 43. This was pretty much put onto the, I guess you could say, major wrestling sporting outlet, if you will, when the Turkish sheik, if you will, who's obviously close friends with the Saudi prince, basically put out a viral video, if you will, put something out. I'm not really sure. It was a viral video through Snapchat or whatever the case may be, stating that WrestleMania was coming. It was coming basically to Saudi Arabia. Well, today in Las Vegas, they put it, they pretty much confirmed, I drank some Red Bull, sugar-free version. That's why I got a bit of a burp there. I do apologize. But basically, it was confirmed today because WWE made this announcement saying they have a big special announcement set for today in Las Vegas, which is the home of Worlds Collide tonight. So, home of Worlds Collide tonight. And basically, they said they had this huge announcement, and it was ironic that it was around the same time that the Saudi, the Turkish sheik, if you will, courtesy of the Saudi prince, basically essentially said, hey, WrestleMania is coming, so I guess WWE wanted to make it official, and they did. They made it official today. They had the Turkish sheik there and all that in Las Vegas to announce that in 2027, WrestleMania 43 will be emanating from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Now, to say that right now fans are not too thrilled with this, would be an understatement. Because we all know how people personally feel about Saudi Arabia, right? They feel as though that it's a place, it's a country that doesn't deserve to have anything given to it. It doesn't deserve any partnerships of any kind, with anybody, basically. That's how they feel. They feel that these people don't deserve anything because of the way the culture is. But here's the thing. What the blind to not see is the fact that that's only certain parts of Saudi Arabia. It's certain people of Saudi Arabian descent that are making the Saudi Arabians, the ones with good intentions, the ones that want to be with the times, the ones that want to be, they want to be looked at as, people for good, people that want peace. I mean, whether you like our president or you don't, him going over there and him saying what he said about the Saudi prince and everybody else, confirming that they, from what he could tell, they themselves want peace. They want to, bring everybody together, if you will. They want to basically, be, like I said, be, treated, be looked at as an equal, be looked at not for what others represent them as, or showcase them as, or whatever you want to say. They want to be looked at as basically, hey, we want peace. We want people to enjoy visiting our country without any issue. I mean, why do you think, honestly, Warner Brothers has a theme park in that area? Why do you think Disney is going to do another Disneyland, like a resort over there? Why do you think they're doing this? Because they see that these people want to change. They want to change. They want to, they want to basically be looked at for good, not for the opposite. And whether you like deals like this going down, whether you like live sport, or not live sport, but live golf, LIV golf, being associated with them, look, it's your opinion, that's fine. But here's the thing. We cannot judge a country based on certain individuals that did wrong, that have been, that did wrong, that, are threats to the countries all across the globe. We cannot judge a country just for those individuals alone. Just like people in Saudi Arabia, in the UK, in Russia, in Mexico, Japan, China, they can't judge, Korea, both Koreas, if you will, they can't judge us, the U.S., just because people talk about how bad of a person our president is, and he's not. Let's be honest with you, like him or not, he's actually doing more good than bad. People, those countries can't judge us just because some people in this country want to act like lunatics. They want to make our country look bad. They can't judge us for that. Just like we can't judge Saudi Arabia and what they're trying to do in places like Riyadh and Jeddah and all of them, we can't judge them based on the lunatics that came out of their countries making them look bad. You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? What I'm saying is just because you may not be happy about this announcement, and yeah, obviously some people will take pictures and snapshots of the superstars that were in attendance there at the most awkward times and basically caption it by saying, oh, they're not happy to be there and everything. They were forced. Look, you don't know that. You don't know whether or not they were happy about it or not. I mean, yeah, maybe they have their own personal opinions of, they'd rather have WrestleMania 43 anywhere but there, based on what they've heard, based on their beliefs and all that. But they're also business people. They're also professionals. They understand that even though they got to go to a place that may not be, reputational-wise, the best place on earth, according to a lot of people, they realize that if they go there and at least for one night or two nights brings smiles to those people's faces, then so be it. That's their job. They know basically, I'm trying to find the right words to say. They know that this is a business, and in any kind of professional business, sports, entertainment, whatever, you have to be professional. Sometimes you got to put your pride to the side. That's what you got to do. Sometimes you got to put your personal feelings aside, and that's it. That's it, and nothing else. And look, Greg Morgan on his social media site was even joking about, I don't know if he was being sarcastic or whatever, but him saying that at 10 a.m. WrestleMania, WWE can go lick his you-know-whats. Look, even if he's being sarcastic, yeah, a lot of people are not going to be thrilled of waking up early in the morning on a Saturday, early in the morning on a Sunday, and watching, a 10 a.m. WrestleMania from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. They're not going to be thrilled about that, but guess what? If they truly want WWE to succeed, and they want WWE to end this partnership with Saudi Arabia as soon as possible, they're not going to watch it. Especially if it is going to have impact on the following Raw and SmackDown that week, or that following week. They're going to watch it. And here's the thing. People can, come out and say what they want to say. They could say, oh, WWE sold out, you sold out, you sold out. And yeah, they might get some chance tonight, even currently as we speak on SmackDown, of you sold out. There's no doubt about that. They probably got those already, but maybe they're not. Maybe the people that are there in Vegas or wherever SmackDown is tonight, maybe they're realizing, hey, we may not like it, but it's beyond WWE's control. And that's the one thing some people are overlooking. WWE is part of the TKO, aka Endeavor family. Guess what that means? It's TKO and Endeavor that are having the final say. If TKO and Endeavor are going to say, yeah, we're going to do WrestleMania 43 in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, whether you like it or not, and all because the Saudi prince and the Turkish sheikh in Riyadh flashed billions and billions of dollars in front of their faces going like, here you go, here you go. Do you think TKO is going to be like, no, we don't want your money, we're never going to bring WrestleMania to you? Of course, you think they're going to act like that? Of course not. Of course not. They're going to look at that and they'll be like, yeah, give us more money and we'll make sure you don't only have WrestleMania for 2 nights, we'll make sure you have some of the best matches. Even if we have to drag people out of the retirement, we'll make it happen. That's their mindset. It's not WWE's, it's theirs, it's TKO, it's Endeavor's. It's their mindset and no one else's. And people need to understand and realize that. People need to understand and realize that, okay? It's like basically, believe it or not, it's like, let's say, if Disney, they let Marvel and Lucasfilms and 20th Century do their own thing, right? Still act like their own entities, even though they're under the Disney umbrella. If Disney decided, okay, 20th Century, we want you to create an adult movie version of, let's say, Mickey Mouse, even though they probably mostly be in charge of it. But let's say they told them, we want you guys to be behind the release of an adult Mickey Mouse movie that's R-rated, it has sex and violence in it, and all that, and let's say the people at 20th Century, that portion of Disney is like, no, we don't want to do that. Disney, they have the final say. Disney would be like, no, you're going to do it because we're your bosses, and you're going to make sure it gets released under your label. They would have the final say. No one else. No one else would have the final say, period. They would. You get what I'm saying? Excuse me, you get what I'm saying? Get what I'm saying? Like I said, you get what I'm saying? Basically, long story short, WWE, the people within the company at Titan Tower, the new Titan Towers and everything in Stamford, Connecticut, maybe Triple H personally, maybe Nick Khan personally, and all that, Bruce Pritchard, maybe the stars themselves, they may not be thrilled with it, but there's nothing they can do because they know at the end of the day, the people that run the show, that have the final say over WWE more so than anyone else is TKO and Endeavor. And if TKO, like I said earlier, is flashed $1 billion in front of their faces, do you not think Ari Emanuel and Mark Shapiro are not going to look at that, take that money and say, you got WrestleMania 43, and we're going to make sure you get the matches you want? You don't think they're going to do that? Of course they are. And if basically reports are to be, are to be believed, and Saudi Arabia wants The Rock and Roman Reigns or The Rock and Cody Rhodes as one of their main events, of that two-night extravaganza, if it does go 2 nights, if you don't think they're going to shell out the money to TKO to make that one of those matchups happen, and TKO's not going to be like, we'll take the money, we'll make sure that happens. If you don't think TKO won't do that, they will. They'll do what they can to give Saudi Arabia what they want, because at the end of the day, it's about the almighty dollar, whether it's North American, U.S., Canadian, Saudi Arabian, whatever. The almighty dollar bill is basically the be-all, end-all for TKO. And that's a fact. It is the be-all, end all for TKO, and that's a fact, and people need to understand that. They need to understand that. There's no other way looking around it. There's no other way to look around it, that is the be-all, end-all for, for TKO and Endeavor. With the people, the higher-ups, all them, who like it or not, if TKO says, you're going to jump, they're going to jump. Or they're going to be in breach of contract. End of story. End of story. So a lot of people may not like this, but there's nothing really they can do. I mean, what are people planning to do? Go outside of the TKO headquarters, outside of the Endeavor headquarters, protest them, make their voices loud, heard loud and clear until TKO and Endeavor's Ari Emanuel says, okay, we hear you, you win, WWE WrestleMania 43, it's going to be in New Orleans, or it's going to be in Dallas, Texas, or it's going to be in New Jersey. Is that what you're hoping is going to happen? Because it's not. It's not going to happen in that manner. And it's funny. You have people coming out and saying, oh, you know what? This would be a great time for Conrad Thompson and Tony Khan to put on a show during that weekend here in North America for the real wrestling. Sorry, I almost had a brain fart there. I do apologize. I don't know why I sounded like that. I think it was something else just came to my mind. I don't know why that happened, but still. But anyway, you have people, I was trying to say is you have people basically coming out on social media now going like, hey, this is an opportunity for Tony Khan and Conrad Thompson to put something together, that's big and everything, just as equally big, if not bigger, here in the States for the real wrestling fans. And you know what's funny? When I hear people say, hey, Tony Khan, this is going to be your opportunity to put on a show for the real wrestling fans. Anytime I hear that, anytime I hear somebody say, hey, Tony can do this for the real wrestling fans, that right there pretty much is why people like JD and Solomonster and everybody else gets on AEW's case and gets on the AEW drones and sickos, the diehards. Because basically, what they just want is wrestling. They just want to be like, oh, here's Bandito against Carl Fletcher, 60-minute Iron Man match. Oh, the flips to the kicks. 60 minutes go by. Oh, give us more 60 minutes. More. It's like, are you serious? Are you serious with that mindset? That's what's causing people to hate on AEW, because all you want is real wrestling. Look, WWE does do real wrestling, but they're more story-based. And people need to understand that. Do they not realize that AEW's future is in jeopardy? Do they not realize AEW's future is in jeopardy right now? And I'll get into that in a moment. Hold on for a sec. Do you not realize that AEW's future is in jeopardy at the moment? And I'll get into that in a second. Because it is, and I'll get into that in a moment. But the thing is, you're hearing people say this now. You're seeing people in the live chat during the press conference on YouTube saying you sold out. All this really is, at the end of the day, it's just people venting their frustration. That's all it is. You're just expressing your frustration. That's all it is. All you're going to do later on is you're going to drink a beer, or you're going to drink some wine, lay back, relax, calm down, and then the next day, look at the live chat, if you scroll through it, maybe see your name, and you're going to be like, man, what was I smoking? Because finally it's going to set in that, hey, this isn't WWE say whatsoever, it's TKO's. It is. But when you really think about it too, TKO, yeah, they're about the dollar bill, as some people used to, say, or how people sometimes used to call it. They're about the dollar bill, but guess what? Maybe TKO, wants this partnership to end a lot sooner. Because think about it. Contractually, we don't know what Vince McMahon agreed to when he first started this deal way back when. We don't know what he initially agreed to. But now, perhaps, we do. Maybe now perhaps we do know what he agreed to. Maybe he did agree that, they're going to get several special shows, mostly for them. Sometimes they're canon or non-canon, whatever the case may be. But maybe he also agreed that before the deal's up, they would get two out of the 4 or 5 big shows. That they'd get a Royal Rumble. They'd get, a WrestleMania, and maybe they'll get a SummerSlam. We don't know. We don't know, but I guarantee you this, honestly, and this is just my opinion, maybe TKO, they're about the dollar bill, and they're willing to, take any money that the Saudi Sports Entertainment Center and all them will offer to bring WrestleMania there, but maybe they're doing that not only because financially it gives them and Endeavor and WWE and UFC, more money in their pockets to, do more production, to get more things done and all that, pay their talents, a lot more than what they're getting right now. But maybe they're also doing it because they realize that, again, part of that deal not only included giving them Royal Rumbles and a WrestleMania, but once those obligations are met, that sooner rather than later, this deal will be done. Think about that. Maybe that's why they're doing it. Maybe that's why they're allowing it to happen, so that way this deal gets done and over with before the decade's out, and then they themselves can get out of this whole situation with Saudi Arabia once and for all. Have you ever thought of that? Do you ever think maybe this was part of the original agreement Vince made, and now TKO's just basically finishing what Vince started? You know, does that not dawn on you maybe that that's what's going on here? Because I think it dawns on me that that's what's going on here. That basically they're finishing what Vince started with this deal, and they're just fulfilling parts of the obligation that maybe Vince was planning to get to a lot further along the lines, maybe hoping for a new deal to be made and reached. But now they're basically saying, hey, let's just get this deal done with. Let's give them WrestleMania. Let's give them Royal Rumble. And if there's one more big event they got to get, hell, let's give them freaking SummerSlam while they're at it. You know, and if that's what takes place next, if that's the next big event out of the big five that takes place in Saudi Arabia, to fulfill the obligation, to fulfill the contractual obligation, between Saudi Arabia and WWE, then so be it. Because again, TKO, they might be about the dollar bill, but they're also about, hey, let's make sure that we get this thing done with, sooner rather than later, and then we can move on. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. But anyway, though, yes, it is official. WrestleMania 43 will be in Jeddah. It will be in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We also know that the end of the year, at the end of January, on the last day of January, will be the Royal Rumble from Riyadh as well, to kick off the new year as far as WWE events go. We found that out during the press conference and everything. But yeah, it is official, and I think right now all people are doing is just venting and and expressing their frustration, and they're going to calm down afterwards and just going to move on and be like, hey, it's TKO, not WWE. We could tell that. We could see that. And maybe when you think about it, like I said, maybe TKO is doing this so that way they can fulfill this contractual obligation Vince made with the Saudi government and get these events, out of the way, so that way they can get out of the deal when it's all said and done. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Let me know what your thoughts are, guys, on this whole situation going into WrestleMania 43 in 2 years. I think by that time things will be a lot better and all that. People hopefully will have a more peaceful understanding as to, what I said earlier about the fact that that there are certain people that do not represent countries, because of the way they act, because of what they do and everything. They do not represent countries because of the stupidity, the horrific acts they do, and the country that they're from, let's be honest, they are ashamed of them. They're ashamed of what they've done. They're ashamed that they're trying to make the country they're from or they represent look bad, and it's not the case. And the same goes for Saudi Arabia. The same goes for Riyadh. The same goes for Jeddah. They're trying to move on. They're trying to be at peace, if you will. They're trying to make things, be better for their people and for any international visitors. Which is why, again, you have other corporations wanting to do stuff with them, because they see that they're putting in the effort to make this all a reality. So we can't judge just because certain groups of people from these countries or any countries want to be a-holes, okay? We can't judge them, because of those people. We have to judge them on what they're trying to do, and that's be a better country for not only themselves, for the people, but for the whole world. And that same goes for the US, the same goes for the UK, Mexico, Russia, Australia, Canada, you name it. But guys, let me know, like I said, what your thoughts are on this overall in the comment section, as well as during the live chat during the premiere if you haven't already. Do me a favor, guys, like the video, ring the bell for notifications, subscribe to the channel, also share the video, and click on the links in the description to find my content elsewhere outside of YouTube, as well as also click on the last link to find my content, not find my content, but find my Teespring store for merchandise you can't get anywhere else. But guys, give me your thoughts on this overall, and until then, I'm out.